Lately, I've been feeling a little bit restless. Like I want to go out into my environment and look for more vintage paper treasures that I can use in my collage art. So I had this idea that I would create a little list of places that I could possibly go and then take you along with me on some of these adventures while I am looking for paper treasure. But the first thing I need to do before I go on these adventures is to create some kind of art journal that I can take with me on these adventures so that when I do find vintage papers, I can create a collage with them in this art journal, almost like a travel art journal. And I was looking at and thinking about traditional travel journals like the Midori travel journal, or there's several Japanese-inspired or Japanese stationery companies who create travel journals. So I was looking at some of those online. They're a little expensive, but more importantly, I don't really care for the leather and how the leather can get scratched up and scuffy and all that. I know, it's a very particular look. Lots of people do like it. But I thought that I could create something of my own. I have a little collection of fabric scraps picked up from creative reuse centers from all over time. So I looked through those and I found a couple of nice scraps that I could potentially use for a journal cover. There was one scrap in particular that I liked. It was a soft cream color, and I thought, I think I would like it to be a little bit more brown, a little darker. So I went ahead and I brewed some really strong tea. And then I used that tea to soak the fabric in this kind of tea bath so that after it dried, it had a really nice walnut color to it. So next, I had some watercolor paper that I wanted to use as part of the base for this cover. And so I pulled out my mat and my cutting tools and I started to trim off some of the edges of my fabric scrap. And this is the size of the notebook. This is an A6 size notebook, which is just under 6 inches. So I found the midpoint and I was looking at the weave of this material and looking for the right place that I could cut down the top and the bottom. So just roughly measuring, just by eye before I went ahead and cut off more of the fabric. Now, before I started to cut down that watercolor paper, I decided that I was going to do a little bit of collaging on here. Not a whole lot, but just kind of, add some interesting pieces of random papers. Not cover up all the watercolor design because I did want some of the color to show through, but just, have some pieces here and there. After that, I took a pen and decided that I was just going to write out a few things. I kind of wanted to have that bit of handwriting element to it. Not that it was important that what I wrote on there, but just for design purposes to have it on there. So once I was done with all that, then I went ahead and started trimming it down. The idea was that I wanted to set it on top of the fabric. So once I had the right size done, then I could go ahead and sew the watercolor paper onto the fabric. And I did that with a couple of stitches so that it was covered over on the side, but it was flush on the top and on the bottom. And I just went with a stitch all the way around on the top and bottom so that it didn't start to come apart. So then I very gently kind of began to fold it. I didn't want to have like a strong crease. I wanted it to just kind of go over the top, and then pushed it gently until I could make the cover do what I wanted it to do. Next, I needed to get the holes cut out so that I could add some eyelets in there. And I had this little tool that kind of presses out the hole, and then the other tool that spreads the metal piece of the eyelet so that it can be mounted onto the paper and onto the fabric. I also wanted to add some kind of pocket or some kind of way that I could store some additional paper materials into this journal. So I decided that I would create a pocket out of an ordinary file folder. I just took a file folder, cut down pieces, and then figured out how wide it should be. And then once I made the hole into the center of this pocket, I needed to reinforce it with these little vinyl reinforcers. Now I'm just gluing the actual pocket itself onto the divider, and then also gluing the front. So here's what it looks like when it's going to be inserted into the journal. I need that middle hole so that the elastic band can go through it. I'll show you what it looks like now. This was the only color elastic I could find at the Michael's craft store. I might go and order something in a brown later because the black kind of doesn't really go with the cover that I so painstakingly created with the dye, with the tea dye. So maybe later on I might switch out that elastic band. So I push it through the middle so there's an extra amount over the front, and then I thread it through the top and the bottom and wrap it around so that I can pull the two pieces together at the ends and knot it with a very simple knot, just a square knot. Then once that elastic is in, I can take my little notebook and slide it into the elastic there. And that's it. It's a very simple book. Okay, now that my journal is complete, I want to think about putting some things inside of it that I can take with me so that when I'm outside and I find papers that I want to collage with, I can go someplace where I can sit down and have some small things with me just in case I need some additional element in my collage. I also know that I'm not going to be able to fit everything into my journal, so I have this little pouch that I can put a glue stick and my ruler and some small pieces, some small bits of washi tape. All right, so what do I have? I have a few cigarette cards, trade cards, and then I have some postage stamps. This is just an empty envelope. I don't know, I might put something in here in the future, so I'm going to set that aside for now. But what I will do is put this back here like this, and I will put these here. I'm not sure what I'm going to need. It's all going to depend on what I find. So, let's go. So I am in the South Bay of the San Francisco Bay Area. This area is also called Silicon Valley. And while this area is known for innovation and tech, there's a lot of California history here as well. 100 years ago, this area was covered in orchards. And though most of those orchards are gone, there are a few left. I'm standing in one in Saratoga, and I'm here because this orchard happens to be located right next to the library. So I'm heading over to the library to go look for any kind of free material that I could possibly use in a collage. So inside this library, there is a section where you can look for old magazines that people don't want anymore. And it was kind of slim pickings today, but I did manage to pick up a few magazines. But that's okay, because not too far away is this old building, which used to be the original library. But then at some point it became too small, and so they needed to grow and move to a new building. But this old building is still used as a second-hand bookstore, which is great because I could go through here and then look for something, especially in this kind of collector's section. And I did happen to find a really cool production handbook, which I use for background papers. And now it's time to walk over to a cafe and have a seat and see what I can do with my papers. I ordered myself a nice piece of almond lemon cake, and once I had eaten it with a cup of tea, then it was time to get to work. All right, now that I am back from my adventures, I have some takeaways and some small rules that I should employ if I'm going to continue to do this going forward. So the first thing is that I need to be mindful about what I bring home. There are so many possible things that I could buy and bring home, and then I have to store and keep them somewhere, and I don't necessarily want to do that. I want to be careful about bringing in extra things. So yes, I will buy things, but I should buy things pretty much only for the collage itself. No extra stuff, just because I see it and because it's inexpensive and it would be a good buy. Nope. I should just buy things that I will use in a collage for that particular time. The second thing is that I should put a cap on the spending, and I'm thinking $5. $5 is the max that I can spend on any materials that I use for collage in the spread that I'm working on. I can do more than one spread if I would like to, but it should be a minimum of one spread. Number 3, I need some kind of date stamp, something that I can use in one of the corners of my 2 pages to put in the date, and then for me to write in the location of where I did the collage. Number 4, I need to have the flexibility of some kind of rubber stamping without bringing a whole bunch of items with me. So I was just thinking about this now on the way back, and I know that I have these, like, I don't know what they're called, dots, paper dots, sticker dots, something like that. What if I take some of these and then I put some rubber stamping, I like these ones because they are round, and then use different colors with a whole bunch of different, stampings on these sheets. And then that way I can bring the sheet with me. So let me go ahead and try these. These are Kathy Holden Flea Market Finds. These are circle label icons. Now these inks I found at Goodwill, so I don't know if, how well they're going to color. That looks okay. Okay, let's see if I can do this. So you get the idea. If I create a whole sheet like this, that way I can bring them with me and then I can use them in here. Here, there. I'm not going to stamp this one with a date right now because I think I'm going to look for something else. But once I do find a date stamp, I will for sure use it because I want to make sure that I remember when I worked on a particular spread. Number 5, do not purchase an entire book for the purpose of tearing out a single page or 2 pages in a spread. So I purchased this big book, Production Handbook. It's lovely. I think it will be very useful for all kinds of collages in the future because it has a lot of really cool illustrations in here that I can tear out and use for other things. So I am going to, oh wow, cool. I am going to tear out more of these pages and I'm going to put them in here in my back pocket so that I can use these as a foundation for some other collages that I make. That way I don't need to buy another one of these kinds of books with loads of background pages in them again. So I have a list of places I'm going to be visiting in the near future. If you're interested in following along, make sure that you are subscribed, and if you hit the little bell icon, you will be notified when a new video comes out. And if you enjoyed this one, do hit the like button so that it can spread to more people, and it'll let me know that you like this kind of content, that it's fun and enjoyable. In the meantime, if you haven't seen this video where I found some really cool vintage things at an estate sale, then check out this video here.